You're somebody I've known since I was a non-gray haired young designer.
Yeah,
and
mine's covered up, but it's there.
Welcome to Questions for Designers, where we discuss the ideas, influences, and inspirations shaping creative work today. I'm your host, Max Beach, designer, educator, and advocate for the creative process. Each episode, I sit down with creative thinkers to explore how they see the world, what drives their work, and where they think design is headed next. Joining me remotely today is Michelle Berryman, FIDSA, Executive Director of Digital Customer Experience at Labcorp, former IDSA President, and one of the 50 most influential designers of the last 50 years. Let's get into it. Michelle, thank you for joining me. Please introduce yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Michelle Berryman. As you said, I'm the Executive Director of Digital Customer Experience at Labcorp. I'm based in Atlanta, and my journey in design has been interesting, circuitous, exciting, fun. I am an industrial designer, and although I don't still model in CAD and actually create products in the physical sense, I still work on digital products, and I still work on really building great experiences for people. And that's kind of my passion.
We've known each other through IDSA for many years,
Yeah.
and during that time, you've taken on major leadership roles, including serving as president. What motivated you to get involved in leadership within the IDSA? And what did you take away from that experience?
I think like a lot of young professionals, I was really hungry to do more than maybe what I was permitted to do at work, I'll say. Um, I kind of had bigger ambitions than just the day-to-day stuff, and IDSA was an opportunity that sort of came to me, if you will. I got invited to write an article for innovation, and then I kind of just like more things sort of happened as a result of that. I was asked to run for a local chapter office. I discovered that being involved, I met really interesting people, people like you that I wouldn't have necessarily encountered in my day to day. And, it was just a really fantastic way to be part of the community and understand what was happening in design.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those opportunities that happens when you put your hand up. And once you get involved, you start interacting with some amazing people and really expand your network. I have to ask, your social media reviews of hotel soaps, shampoos, and conditioners are legendary. It's a perfect example of noticing the small details that make or break an experience. Where did the habit start, and what does it say about how you look at design day to day?
It's a funny thing because how poorly labeled those products are has always bothered me. And, one day I was in a hotel and I just had sort of had enough, and I posted about it, and I graded the quality of the labeling in terms of visibility, legibility, in terms of accessibility, and it went a little bit viral on me in terms of my friends and colleagues, where all of a sudden everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, this drives me nuts too." And I started having people send me pictures. Like I didn't ask for it. People just started to send me pictures from their own hotel experiences. And it's this universal bad design problem that we all encounter, and we just deal with it. And it's sort of like we should really stop and think about, why are we dealing with things that are poorly designed? Why does the shampoo and toiletry industry think that we are more concerned with the brand name than we are with the actual product? We get in the shower, we're we've just woken up. We don't have our glasses on. Like, we just, like, I want to make sure that I get the shampoo in my hair, that the conditioner goes in my hair, that the body wash goes on my body. It's a small thing. And yet, for some reason, this industry has so much hubris that they think that we are far more concerned with the brand name than we are with the product. The other thing about this particular use case that drives me nuts is you find that hotels are they're trying to buy good products very often, especially higher end hotels, right? They want you to have this great experience. And then they buy these products that are unusable on some level. And it reflects poorly on them as well. Or you see situations. I posted about Delta in their Sky Clubs had to put additional labels on the hand soap and the hand lotion because people were clearly mixing them up because the bottles are exactly the same and they're sitting right next to each other. And there's no ability for us as users to control like the order that the products appear in because they're often attached to the wall. So like at home, where those products are.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to create this homey environment, but the user has no idea how this was organized. It's not their home.
Yes.
Michelle, who or what shaped the way you see the world creatively?
I've thought about this over the years, and I had the good fortune to grow up. My dad was a career Army officer, and we lived in Europe for much of my childhood. And my parents were very big on travel, and I can remember, even at 5, 6, 7 years old, going to museums, going into old castles, seeing a lot of art and medieval kinds of things. And like as a kid, it was really hard to relate to the paintings so much in these galleries, but I understood the chairs and the furniture. I understood the suits of armor and the swords and knives and things like that. And I think that just seeing so much of that as a kid and sort of thinking about some of the aesthetics and the fact that people made these objects, like these, what does a hairbrush look like from 200 years ago? As a kid, I could think about that, and I think that those seeds were planted pretty early. I also think living in Europe, my sense of design has a bit of a European, Scandinavian sort of clean aesthetic as a result.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Michelle, what project taught you the most, even if it didn't succeed?
I worked as an exhibit designer in the late 90s, and I worked on a big exhibit for Nike for a trade show called Super Show. It was around 30,000 square feet, I think. We won the project in mid-October, and the show was at the beginning of February. And I worked 7 days a week. I took off Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, and I took one other day off. And I was flying back and forth to Portland from Atlanta. And it was just sort of being immersed in this experience of designing really interesting experiences. And I'm a big sports person, so that there was a lot of passion there. But also it was this, like, the perfection that Nike demanded and the unrelenting timeline of things had to be done. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about quality. I learned a lot about uh, collaboration and thinking and solving problems. The Nike designers had come up with these concepts for what they wanted this exhibit experience to be like. And of course, talking about architectural scale, none of the concepts that they came up with were designed with scale in mind in terms of thinking about what would fit in the space that we had. So there was a lot of work to collaborate with them to get to the essence of what they were trying to create in terms of emotion, feel, aesthetics, and then kind of redesign it all to achieve those same goals. And it was just a great experience.
Can you expand a little bit on maybe how your interest in sports led into your development of these projects?
Yeah, so I think that a couple of things there. I wasn't the primary designer on this particular piece, but there was a women's sports pavilion that was part of it. And, of course, that was super interesting to me. Uh, and I learned at that point in time that they had done all this research. And by the age of 10, if a girl has not played organized sports, there's less than a 10% chance that she'll participate in sports as an adult,
Oh, wow.
which is
That's
fascinating.
a crazy statistic.
Yeah. And at the time, I mean, I was playing adult soccer. Uh, this is sort of the height of the U.S. women's national team soccer with Mia Hamm and Brandy Chastain and all of that. And that was just wild to me because I have always played sports. And it sort of made me think about the impact that life choices make and what it means to be inclusive and welcoming, and the barriers to some of those things along the way. So I find it really refreshing that so many women are doing athletic things today, that women's sports is having a moment. I was really privileged last year to work on the redesign of the LPGA's website. And, that was very meaningful for all those same reasons that just like, yeah, this is a fantastic league. It's full of rock star athletes who are doing incredible things. And I get to play a small part in helping tell that story.
What's great about this is finally all the due attention coming to these great athletes. What's inspiring you right now outside of design?
Ooh, that's a really interesting question. It's sort of, I've kind of discovered that as you sort of move up, you get, you know, a little further away from the actual being on the boards, pushing the pixels, drawing the things, and that's fine. And my current position is not technically a design position in the classic sense of it, but I am guiding digital customer experience. So I look for ways to be creative and to keep all the passion going outside of what I do during the day as part of my job. I've started painting again. I just took a class in printmaking. I I kind of have found myself wanting to get back to things that are more tactile, that I'm making and creating, not using the computer so much. Um, there's something really special about painting and like trying to master the brush stroke and the medium. So I'm trying to reconnect to some things like that I haven't done in a while.
That's great to see a reconnection of something that is tactile. How does stepping outside of your professional design lane recharge or reshape your thinking?
I love that it gives me a place where I can be as creative as I want to be so that I'm never left wanting more than I can do in my professional life, for instance. Because I think I'm currently working inside a corporation uh, and we're in the medical field. It's a conservative industry. There are a lot of compliance regulations, but I've spent most of my career in consulting, and you always have clients who they have their vision of what you're going to build for them. You have your vision. They're not always the same, and you have to be able to make compromises. And I think that the one thing about art is that you don't have to compromise.
There is definitely a freedom that comes with that. Where do you think design is most needed in the next decade?
I've been thinking about this a bit, and of course, there's no getting around the elephant in the room with with AI and the ability to accelerate how we brainstorm and think, how we can maybe take a sketch of something and feed it into a generative agent and have it create, 50 versions of this. And yet I continually feel like there is this inherently human quality of design that the machine will never give us. And designers are going to have to figure out how to harness the humanity that we bring to things, the true empathy, the true understanding of context. Um, Otherwise, I think we're going to end up with a lot of things like we talked about, like these shampoo bottles that are good enough on some level. I mean, I've never not been able to wash my hair in a hotel. Like I can figure it out. Um, but good enough isn't great. And I think as humans, we aren't going to settle for things that are just mediocre across the full spectrum. Mediocre is okay in some contexts, but it's not okay all the time. I've been, for whatever reason, in some of my social media feeds, I've been getting a lot of house plans, like mountain houses or
I've seen those.
mid-century modern, and they're really interesting. Like I love looking at them, and they're all rendered. They're not real, right? And like at first glance, you look at it and you're like, that's a really cool looking house, and then you look at the floor plan and you're like, it's kind of a mess. Like there are too many doors, and this doesn't make any sense, and I don't know that this fits with how somebody would actually live. The pantry's in the wrong place. The laundry room is not positioned right. And so I think that's what I mean. Like you can turn out things really, really quickly. And at a superficial glance, it looks great. And then when you put it to the test, you realize that it wasn't designed with actual consideration of the humans that are going to use it, experience it, interact with it, sit on it, touch it. Uh, and like I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm excited about the possibility that some of these tools bring to us. I don't think that we're all going to be out of a job as a result of it. In fact, I think that what might happen is we're going to get to the place that our skills are valuable a lot faster. There's a lot of low value work that professional graphic designers don't want to do and shouldn't do. That, yes, anybody should be able to sit down and make a flyer for this or that. And that's totally awesome. That's what those tools are there for. There is a certain democratization that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And in that sense, it brings up the level of some of that generic design work. What's a realization you've come to that only experience could have taught you?
I I kind of stopped playing soccer about 15 years ago. I started running, and I've gotten into doing some long distance things, some ultras. I've run across the Grand Canyon rim to rim 3 times. But that's taught me the value of dedication, of perseverance, of not giving up and not quitting, um, of committing to something and following it all the way through. I mean, you're in the Grand Canyon. You can't just decide that you want to stop. Like you have to get to the other side. There's no rescue, really, Like it's one foot in front of the other, and the hours of training, and just the consistency. I've learned that it's a good metaphor for the rest of my life, for my profession, for my craft. There aren't any shortcuts. If you want to be really good at what you do, you have to put the time in. And, that means that still, like, about half the books I read every year they're books about design or creativity or business or um, customer experience or something like that, because there's still things to learn. I'm still learning tools. I'm still learning how to communicate better. I don't ever want to stop learning. And I think it's just the knowledge that I am continuing to pursue excellence in my craft. And I don't get to just stop, you know?
Michelle, is there something you see differently now that maybe you didn't see as a younger designer?
One thing that was kind of interesting, I think, early in my career was I got my industrial design degree at Georgia Tech, and it's more of a technical school. It's not an art school per se, and I don't think I really recognized fully the difference between an art-based education and I'll call it a classic university education, which Georgia Tech sort of falls into, but again, having that more technical kind of side of things. And what I've really come to realize as a professional designer, as a fully functional adult with some, view of the world is that there is no one path to get to the answer. And I've really gained a tremendous appreciation for colleagues who have different educational backgrounds than I do, because they're taught to think a little bit differently. The skills they have are a little bit different. They bring a different perspective. So, I think sometimes when we think about those kinds of perspectives, we think more about culture or, sort of where somebody grew up or how they got started. But I think that there's just a lot of that sort of diversity that you can still find just simply based on education. And some of it is going to be tied to time and place, like particular professors at particular schools and points in time really kind of create amazing people and amazing thinkers who go on to spread that same sort of philosophy. So I don't know that earlier in my career I understood that the way that I do now. And I really think that's kind of a beautiful thing, actually.
Michelle, this has been great. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Well, I appreciate it. This has been very enjoyable for me too, Max. So really, really appreciate it.
I'm Max Beach. Until next time, keep asking questions.